ABA gets called abusive every single day. And honestly, some of those criticisms are right. I'm not here to defend old school ABA practices. I'm here to admit what we got wrong, including my own mistakes, and to show you how we can do better. Because if we don't, this field won't survive. I'm Amelia Delphonse, BCBA for almost a decade and co founder of Master ABA. I've trained hundreds of staff and parents, and I'm passionate about moving ABA into a compassionate, client centered future. But I need to be honest with you. When I started, I was trained in the compliance based model, and I taught that same model to my supervisees. I cringe when I think back on it now, but it's important to own it because I don't do that anymore. And I don't do it anymore because of the feedback I've heard online from autistic adults. And because as an early childhood educator, before I became a BCBA, it never sat right with me. So today I'm going to share what we as a field need to admit and how we can move forward. We need to admit that ABA was compliance first. When I first started as a BCBA, compliance was the goal. That's how I was trained. I remember walking into homes and talking to parents about compliance like it was the Holy Grail. One time I met a mom for the first time. I explained that the first thing we needed to work on was compliance, and she stopped me mid sentence. Her face hardened and she said, "We don't use that word in this house." I was stunned. I froze. I felt defensive at first. I mean, this is what I was taught ABA was. Compliance was supposed to be a good thing, right? But as I stood there, her words sank in. She didn't want her daughter to be trained to obey blindly. She wanted her to learn, to communicate, to understand, to grow, but not to simply comply. And she was right. Compliance for the sake of compliance builds fear, not skills. That moment changed how I thought about the work I was doing. And it's one of the reasons I believe we, as a field, need to stop defending old ABA and start owning the fact that compliance based ABA has caused harm. We need to admit that ABA ignored what really matters to families. A lot of families quit ABA not because they hate it, but because we've failed to show them what's possible. I'll never forget taking over a case for a 6-year-old boy that I'll call Aiden. His mom told me right away that she wasn't sure ABA was right for her son. She said he had been in therapy for 6 months, and the only thing he had learned was to sit at the table, and even that didn't stick. As she talked, Aiden climbed over the back of the couch. He crawled across the kitchen counters and he actually threw food on the floor. Not food he was eating. He just grabbed an onion and threw it on the floor. His mom didn't sit down once during the conversation. She was too busy chasing after him. I asked her what forms of communication they had tried, and she looked at me like I had three heads. She said, "He's not nonverbal. He can't communicate." No one had ever told her that Aiden might be able to communicate with PECs or a speech generating device. 6 months of ABA, and no one had given her hope that her son might be able to tell her what he wanted or needed. We started PECs that week. I met with her once a week for an hour and a half, and she practiced with him every day for a little bit. She didn't understand all of the nuances of introducing PECs, but in just 3 weeks, Aiden was independently requesting using phase 3B of the PECS protocol. His mom cried as he dug through a pile of pictures to find the picture for tickles because he was so excited to have her tickle him. That's why I say critics aren't wrong when they call ABA useless or even harmful. If all we're teaching is sitting at the table, we're not helping families. Ethical ABA focuses on meaningful, life-changing goals, communication, autonomy, and skills that give kids more control over their lives, not less. We need to admit that the system pushes us toward bad ABA. So let me tell you a story that still makes me angry. I worked with a boy who hadn't taken a full bath in 5 years. He'd become aggressive whenever his parents tried. And so for a year and a half, we worked on helping him tolerate taking a bath. We made slow but measurable progress. Then insurance denied the goal on the fourth time I had submitted it. Why? Because tolerating isn't considered medically necessary. I had to rewrite the goal to say accepts bath, and magically it got approved. Same goal, different wording. Other people might have just given up on that goal. This is exactly why ABA gets criticized as compliance based or ineffective. Too often, our goals are written for insurance, not for kids. And I'm going to be honest with you. I used to just play along. I'd rewrite goals without thinking about the message that sent to the family because that's how the system worked. But that's not good enough anymore. As a field, we need to push back. We need to explain to families when insurance pressures are shaping what we can write. And we need to find creative ways to stay ethical, but while still getting the approval for the meaningful goals we want to use with families. If we don't, we're becoming part of the problem. We need to lead the shift toward autonomy and assent. The future of ABA is choice, not compliance. And it's actually easier than you think to start practicing this way. I worked with a preschooler who tantrumed over everything. If I asked him to open the door, he'd scream. If I opened the door, he'd scream because he wanted to do it. It felt like every single interaction was a power struggle. One day I decided to try something a little different. I gave him a choice. Do you want to open the door or do you want me to open the door? He opened the door without a problem. So I kept going. Do you want to hold my hand or should I hold on to your jacket while we're walking through the parking lot? Do you want to say goodbye or do you want to just wave? The power struggles melted away because he finally had control. That's assent-based ABA. That's how we move forward as a field, by giving kids autonomy and honoring when they say no. We need to be honest, even when it's hard. The truth is, ABA has hurt people. Some of that harm was unintentional, but that doesn't make it less real. Autistic adults who call ABA abusive aren't making it up. They lived it. The best way to respond to critics isn't to argue. It's to say, you're right. ABA used to focus on compliance, but it doesn't have to be that way anymore. If we want ABA to survive, if we want to keep helping kids and families, we have to keep evolving. That starts with admitting our mistakes and doing better. If you want to join a community of like-minded BCBAs, check out the dojo. We are joining together to make an important difference in this field. I can't wait to see you there.